Hi viewers, welcome to Beginners Tech Road.
In the previous video, I gave an introduction about object-oriented programming and how to declare a class. Now, we will look into access modifiers and creating objects for a class. Okay, so all types and type members have an accessibility level. So this access modifiers gives the level of accessibility for these types and type members. So this accessibility level controls whether whatever the type or type members you are going to declare, okay, whether those can be used from code in your present assembly or even in other assembly. So that gives the accessibility level for the whatever the access modifiers you use for the types and type members. So we have various access modifiers. So the public is the access modifier having high accessibility level. So when you use public access modifier to define any type or type members, then what it gives a accessibility, it is a high accessibility level. It's nothing but you can use that in same assembly or even in another assembly. So the accessibility will be there for the whatever the types and type members you defined with the public access modifier. Okay. The next one is internal. So the internal access modifier, which gives an accessibility level to use in the same assembly. So whatever type or member you defined with the internal access modifier, you can use that type or member only within the same assembly. You cannot use from another assembly. Okay, that is the internal. So the difference, if you see, public access modifier gives the accessibility level to access in the same assembly or in another assembly, but internal it gives only the accessibility level to access within the same assembly. Okay, so what is assembly here? If you see, assembly in the sense one project, if you created a project, whatever the code you've written in the project, that project gives one assembly. Like that, you can have a multiple projects. Every project will be a one assembly. So that is the use of the public and internal access modifiers. The next one is private access modifier. So this access modifier, so whenever you use to declare a type or its members, then only the type or member can be accessed only in the same class. Okay, you cannot access outside the class. So that is the use of the private access modifier. So similar way, even we have protected modifier, protected internal, private protected. So like this, we have all these access modifiers. Okay, so mostly first we will use the public and private. So later on, once we learn all the key concepts of the object-oriented programming, then we can use all these access modifiers, then we can understand the better way. Because all these protected internal, private protected, these access modifiers only we can use once if you learn the key concepts. So because these are all is part for the key concepts to use it. So at the end, after completion of all our key concepts, at the end, once again, I will give you a in detail explanation about all these modifiers with the examples programs I will explain. Okay. At present, you can understand the public, internal, private as we are going to use this most in the present, whatever we are going to learn. Okay. So example, if you see this access modifiers, okay, example for a class, to declare a class as per the syntax, access modifier, class keyword and class identifier. So here access modifier is specified as a public and the class name is employee identifier is employee. So nothing but this is a employee is a type, a custom type. So for this type, the access modifier we use it as a public so that this employee can be used in the same assembly or even in another assembly. So that is the thing. Suppose when you declare a class, suppose if you omit this access modifier, here as an example I used public. Suppose if I omit this public access modifier, if I remove this, then what happened? Which is the default access modifier for the class? Okay, if you see, the internal is the default access modifier for classes that are declared directly within a namespace. Okay, so it's nothing but in a project, if you see, so this is the namespace. So under the namespace, this is the class, whatever the default class, the program we have. For here, there is no access modifier specified. It means within directly within the under the namespace, if you define, okay, then the default will be internal. Okay, the same way, suppose inside the class is nothing but as a member, if you define another class and if you omit the access modifier, at that time it will take private. So that most thing need to understand. The internal is the default access modifier for a classes that are declared directly within a namespace. Okay. Private is the default access modifier for all class members, including nested classes. Okay, as I mentioned, so if you declare a class inside the class body is nothing but as a member, if you declare another class, that time default is the private. Here it is the default is the internal. And also, when you define a class directly within a namespace, you can use only the internal and public. Only these two access modifiers you can use. Even you cannot specify the private. Explicitly, you cannot specify private. You cannot specify protected, internal, protected, private, protect. Like this, you cannot specify. Only directly within a namespace, you can use internal is nothing but a default. It is internal, or you can use it, and then the public. Only these two are allowed as directly within a namespace. But inside as a member, all access modifiers will be allowed, and if you omit it, default is the private. So this is the one need to understand. And also, if you see here, in an example, in a class, what I have done an example as I removed public. So this will be treated as an internal so that this employee type can be accessed within the namespace, within the assembly, wherever we are going to write. Is nothing but in this project, if we write console application 1 project, then that can be accessed within this console application 1 assembly. Okay, so this is about the default of the class access modifier. Then as a body of this class is nothing but as a members, I have taken two examples. Okay, employee variable and employee sal. Employee variable as a string data type, employee sal as a double data type, and employee name used as a public access modifier, and employee sal used as a private access modifier. So here if you omit, this employee sal will be taken as a private access level. Okay, that is about the for body as a members, how the accessibility level you can define, and even if you omit, what is the default. Okay, so here now as an example, I have taken this variable and I assigned as a first name, last name as a value. I have taken this as a variable and I assigned as a 50,000 as a value. Okay, so when we declare a variables inside a class, we will call it as a fields. As we know, class have various members. The few basic members, if you see, like fields, properties, methods, constructors. So like this, various members we can define in a class. As a basic, first I explained about the variables. These are nothing but a fields. Later on, we will learn about each and every member of the class, and then we will write the examples also for each and everything as when we learning. Okay. So this is about the access modifiers. And one more we need to remember when we declare any type and type members. Okay, whenever we using the access modifiers, the only one access modifier is allowed. You cannot use more than one access modifier. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are the access modifiers. So you can use any one. Okay, but you cannot club like public internal. Okay, here protected internal is there. This is as a one access modifier. So this is allowed, but like a public internal or like a public private protected, like that, more than one access modifier is not allowed. So this is the most important. So it means like here public private, like this, two access modifiers you cannot use. Okay, but as a available access modifier like a private protected, this we can use. It's nothing but these two as a one access modifier, so that you can use it. Okay, so this is about the access modifiers. Object. Creating objects is nothing but instances of a class. Creating an instance of a specific class. Example, we have on top we have defined a class, sample class. So sample class, this is the object. One is the variable name, like a this type, sample class type variable, this one. Same way, integer variable, how we have defined. Similar way, this is the one variable of sample class type. Okay, and then equal to new sample class. So this way we need to use to create a object. So what this does, you need to use a, this is an here a new is a keyword. Okay, we need to use a new as it is, and then class name with the parenthesis. Okay, this is nothing but if you see like a method kind of in the parenthesis. Even here also we can have a parameters and all those things we will discuss later on. Okay, so this is the creating the object a syntax. So what it does when you do this, so what is happening first when you do this, it when this object is created first in a memory. Why? Because the, as we discussed, class does not require any memory space, but the objects require a memory space, right? So first it will allocate the enough memory for this. It allocate into the managed heap for this specific object. Okay, and this variable object one holds only a reference to the memory location of the newly created object. Okay, so it is a referencing. Objects are reference type. So we will discuss further what is the reference type. Okay, what are the various like a reference, what are the other types we have, we will discuss after completion of this members and this things. We will discuss about the what are the reference type, what are the other types we have. We will discuss more in detail. Okay, so this occupies some memory and it allocates, and that memory reference will be available here. So this is about the creating the object. Even you can just declare object variable like this. We know earlier how we created a integer variable, how we just declared integer variable or long variable or string variable, and later on how we assigned a value to that. Similar kind, if we can do even for this, because it's exactly same like this also is a one type. So we can do same way like sample class object to just semicolon. When you do like this, what happens? It just declaring a object variable. It's not creating a instance. It's not assigning any value for the thing. So in this case, what happens? It just creates the object and it won't take any memory for the value. The value will be only a null value. Okay, only value will be null value in this case. Later we can create object and we can assign a value. So in same way how we discussed for other variables, same way object2 equal to new sample class. So whenever you create, you need to use this new class name with the parentheses. So this is about the after just declaring how we can assign. So in this case, what happens now? Here it creates a memory location for that object. That memory location will be referenced to this variable. Here nothing will be referenced. It is a null value. Here it references that memory location of the object. Whatever the object created, that memory location will be assigned to this. Okay, that we need to understand here how we can create the object this way and how we declare without creating an object and how later we can create an object. So this is the example. Now we will write a simple program to declare a class and create objects. Okay, so earlier as I explained about class car in my WOOP introduction, okay, so I will use this car as an example. Okay, so I will write a program. Okay, so I will open our application. Okay, so now, yeah, before we write our own class, now if you look at so far we have practiced so many examples, but if you look at now we can understand a better way. If you see, so this is the class and keyword and this is the class identifier. So nothing but this is the program is the class name is a type. Okay, and it's a default, it's taking as a internal accessibility level. Now inside this is a member. So here this is actually a method. Okay, so we will discuss later on about that. Okay, so now similar way, now we can write our own classes. So what I will do, we know that this is a program.cs is a default. When we create a project, the default it's created this file and default here, this is the static void main method is the startup when you run a console application. So now if we want to make a separate file, like our own file to define whatever the classes you want to define, then we can do that. It's not like you can define here as a additional class. Why? Because under a namespace you can have a multiple classes in one file. Under a namespace you can have a multiple classes. So this is the one class. Similar way, the below you can write another class. Like that many classes you can write. But instead of writing in the program.cs, what I will do, I will create a separate file. I will write it. So that way we can have a multiple files. We can create and we can write the code in multiple files. And I will explain even that code how we can use in the default this startup method. Okay, so here under the project, when you click on the project, right click, then you will be having here option add and new item, or even directly as a template here, directly as a class, it is there. So if you click a new item, then it will open and you can pick here the class. Various items will be there so that you can pick whichever the item you needed. As currently we are learning about the classes, so you can pick the class. So here like this, so many it will show class, content page, various things will be there. Later on we will learn. So now as we want to create a class, so we can pick the class and then the file name it's showing class1.cs as a default. You can give a whatever the name you wanted. So as an example, I will just give as a sample class. The file name I will give sample class. So the extension default will be the for class files. It is a CS. Okay. And then add. If you click add, so under the project like a program.cs, you can get the sample class.cs. See now sample class.cs file created and default automatically the basic code it's written. So if you see here, okay, namespace, same project name default it will take. We can take various namespaces. Okay. Usually based on the concept, the namespaces we will keep like a collectively various classes. If you want to group under as a one namespace, we can put under a specific namespace like that. So you can keep a same namespace for all the things if all together as a one group, or if it is a different, we can make it a different. So now example for this, I will just give you a different namespace for understanding. So example OOP as abbreviated object-oriented programming, and as a practice we are doing as a practice. So I just make it as a namespace object OOP practice, object-oriented programming practice. So like this namespace. So usually the namespace is also based on the collection various classes, whatever you are going to use it, one or multiple related to that we will be giving the namespace. Okay, and this identifier of the namespace, okay, whatever the name you are going to provide, it follows same like whatever the we have a guidelines for a variables declaration, similar way here also. Okay, so I have given a name as a OOP practice as a namespace. Now if you see the class default, the name it's given sample class is nothing but whatever the file name we have given, default it's given a same as a class name. So you can, suppose if you are making one file for only one class, then you can keep it like this kind of. If you are giving as a multiple classes, then you can make it whatever the class, the name you are going to give. Example, as our example, I will just give as a class name as a car, so that I'm not giving any access modifier. Why? Because I am just thinking to have a accessibility level only within this assembly. So that class car, that default usually it will be this one. Okay, as a internal default. Okay, if you want specifically for a public, you can make it as a public. Other than that, you cannot make. Even example explicitly private, if I put, it won't allow. See now here red indication, you can see here namespace cannot be explicitly declared as a private, protected, internal, or private, protected, like that. All the other modifiers whichever you cannot use, it's mentioned. Only you can use public, or if you omit, it's a default is the internal. Okay, so like this. So class car. So the definition of the class we have given. Now the body of the class, if you look at, okay, as an example here, whatever we discuss, so name, color, model. So I will just take it, those are the fields. So these are the methods later on, once you fill in, we will do that. First, as a basic fields, I will just take those and I will use as a members. So all those are the string data type, so that the data type string, and then the names, field names like a name, color, model. So all are the string type, so that even as a single line, one time the data type, and then with the comma separator, I can give the multiple. Even you can give like a individually like the string name and string color. This also is correct, but as the same data type, usually the better way is you can use like this. If you are declaring all together, you can do like that. Okay, So this is about the thing, and I am default, I am not giving anything as an access modifier. As we know, for a member, default, if you are not providing any access modifier, then default it will take it as a private. So let's see with the private access modifier how the member can be accessed, how it accessibility level will show. We will check it. And then one more as an example. Additionally, if we want to add example as a int type, example fuel, how much fuel we have in the car, if you want to track it. Okay, you can make it as a like example int fuel. So this is the a simple class definition I have given here as a 4 fields, 3 fields of a string data type and one fuel field as a int data type, and for all I specified as a private accessibility level. Fine. Now class we defined. So how we can use this class now to create object? So we know that class is a blueprint for the objects. Fine. Class definition we have done. Now how we can use this? So we know that in a program.cs, this class program, this static void main, here is the starting point when you run the console application. So whatever you want, you need to write here only. So, but now how you can use that? So here the class name is car. As we know, to declare like a object and initialize the object, how we can do? Example, first as a example, I will just take like car. See, when I typing, it's not showing. Why it's not showing? It's giving a red, because even though here it is internal, so that it should access in the same assembly, but why it is not accessing? The reason is here the namespace is OOP practice and here the namespace is console application. So if that is the case, then how you can access? So to access, you need to specify the namespace, so that if you give OOP, see, as soon as you type in IntelliSense, it's showing. So OOP practice dot, if you put, now the car is showing. So this way you can write. But instead of, see, how if you want to use, every time you need to specify that namespace. Okay, is there any alternative? Yes, we have a alternative in the C#. Okay, so how we can do that? This is what, if you observe here, using system. Same way now you can use, specify one time as like a using OOP practice. As soon as type, it's showing. So similarly, so many namespaces is showing, built-in namespaces. Now whatever we define, this is the namespace. So once if you give this, then you no need to specify like this. Directly under that namespace, as you included under the namespace, whatever the types you have, you can use straight. So now you can use. So car, and then if you want to define a object, so example, I will take the variable name car object1 and equal to initialize, we know that new keyword we need to use, and then car, automatically IntelliSense is showing, and then parenthesis if you give, and semicolon. So this is the way of declaring and initializing a object of car type. Okay, so this is the object variable name car object1. So a type of car, and we declared and initialized is nothing but we instantiated the car object. Okay, this is the one way what we discussed. Similar way, just declaring and later on if you want to assign, see now car, and then example car object 2, you can just declare like this, and later on you can assign like car object 2. See, as soon as you declare, both is showing car object 1, car object 2. So car object 2 equal to, now instantiating the object. So new car parenthesis. That's all. So this is the way after declaring if you want to initialize. Okay, so this is what we discussed. See, now it's all showing without any errors. So now fine, we defined a class here and we creating objects for that classes. Okay, so this is fine. Now, how to access members of the object? So here just object created. We have currently for this class, we define these 4 members, all are fields. So now how those we can access? So how we can access? Just object name, example car object 1 dot. As soon as you put dot, it shows all the available. Okay, here we are not able to see whatever the fields we defined in this class member. It's not showing. Why it's not showing? Why here when you put dot, it's not showing the fields? Because the accessibility level. So this is what I was explaining about the access modifiers and what every access modifier, what level of accessibility it gives. As a private, only within the class you can use. Okay, only here you can use this. Outside this class, you cannot use. So if you want to use, now you need to make a public or internal. Internal means it will be available only within the namespace. Public means it will be available, within this assembly. If you make a public, this can be accessible in this assembly as well as another assembly. So you can take it as a public, or even you can take it as a internal. Okay, so like this example, for this I taken as a public, for this I taken as a internal. Now if you go, if you put a dot, see now automatically you got fuel, you got model, name, color. Every field we have the accessibility. So that is the use of the access modifiers that gives the accessibility. So now how we can use that? That is, if you want this field directly, car object 1 dot color. Usually for a variable, normal variable, when you define as a string variable, how we will use directly the variable name we were using. But now here the variables we declared as a fields, because as a member in a class, so that we are calling as a field. So to access that fields, we need to use object dot that field. Okay, see now this can be accessed. Just we will print the values and we will see. Okay, so just what I can do, see, just object created and we have specified the fields. We didn't assign any values to the fields. So if you print, you don't get any values, right? So before showing on the screen, how we can assign the values? Example, car object 1 dot name. Okay, like this, and equal to same. How variables you will assign? Same way. Example, I will just give you a name, my car 1. Okay, similar way, I can just assign the remaining fields also, like a car object 1 name and color. See, if you type 1 or 2, automatically the intelligence it shows. You can double click or you can tab, you can use. Example, my color 1 and model, my model 1. So like this, even fuel, everything, every field you can access like this, and you can assign the values. Okay, now I assign some values. If I want to show on the screen, as usual, using the console.writeLine method, and then okay, I will use interpolation. So here now example, car name, so here car object 1 dot name, and then 1 tab, and then color, object1 dot color and one tab model. Or object1 dot model. So like this. Even similar way, if you want to do for another object, okay, you can do same way. I am just copying and pasting. So example here, instead of a 1, if I use a object 2, here object 2, and here my car 2, my color 2, my model 2. See like this. See, if you see, the class definition is 1. Same definition we use to create a 2 objects, like a 2 cars we created. So for the first car, we are giving the name and some color, some model, all the things. And for second car, some different name and all the things. So now to access whichever the object, that object and that respective data, it will be displayed on the screen. See, now I can save this, and even this also I can save like this individual, or you can click this so that it will save all. So now if I execute this, see how it will be showing. See now we can see the result, car name. So my car 1, color my color 1, model my model 1. Similar way for the second object display, my car 2, my color 2, my model 2. So this is the result. See now, if you see whatever the thing we have written, based on that, the result, if you see now here, same first object we displayed the values, and second object we displayed the values, so that respective object values is displayed on the screen. So
Thank you for watching. Please like, share, subscribe to our channel for more videos.